one of his favorites, I believe. The pink Converse Chuck Taylors, quite durable, quite reliable. Of course, a fantastic pick. And this was one of, I think he was Nike's first lifetime deal. I think this obviously preceded LeBron James's deal, and deservedly so. Gen Z geese out there, they don't understand the fact that the Goose medical system was just an absolute shell of what it is now. And be grateful. If you're a Gen Z Goose out there, you got to be grateful for what you got. At the end, I mean, this is pure speculation, but there have been some rumors, some theories going around that after that Johnny Carson incident, he started running with the wrong crowd and got involved in some underground goose business, if you will. I believe. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you have a box of tissues handy tonight, because we are taking a look at quite a somber topic indeed. Of course, I'm talking about the 1991 unsolved murder of Nebraska native and hometown hero Andy the Goose. Andrew, for those who knew him more formally. We're going to quickly take a read through his Wikipedia page here, which, in my humble opinion, is rather sparse considering the impact that he's had not only in his hometown of Hastings, Nebraska, but also across the globe. Without further ado, for those of you unfamiliar with this true tragedy, let's get on into things. Andy was a goose hatched without feet. He was well known for wearing sneakers to help him stand and walk. Of course, the Andy we are talking about here is this strapping young gentleman wearing, in this photo you can see him wearing one of his favorites, I believe, the pink Converse Chuck Taylors, quite durable, quite reliable. Of course, a fantastic pick. And this is his owner, the late Gene Fleming. We'll get into that real soon. But this is just a little context to show you what kind of, obviously strapping young man and a tragic ending. Spoiler alert. The Goose hatched in 1987 without feet and lived on a farm in Harvard, Nebraska. Not Harvard University, obviously. This is Harvard, Nebraska we're talking about. The Harvard, Nebraska, that as of the 2010 census, the only population was 1,013. So he's a real small town guy. And this is a 2010 census. This is back in 91. Who knows? There could have been only 500, of which Andy was one. The Goose hatched in 1987 without feet and lived on a farm in Harvard, Nebraska. And when Andy was 2 years old, Gene Fleming from nearby Hastings became aware of the plight of the bird. Gene, an absolute saint of the community. Fleming was an inventor and member of a local charity for disabled children, and he thought he would be able to help. Fleming took care of Andy and his mate, Polly, and moved them to his farm in Hastings. Fleming's granddaughter, Jessica, named him after a girl she had gotten into a fight with in junior high school. And although he was named after a somewhat violent girl, Andy was nothing but a sweetheart. Initial failed attempts at providing Andy with more mobility Initial failed attempts at providing Andy with more mobility included a skateboard-like prosthesis. However, on the I guess the thought here was that if he had a skateboard, kind of like the dogs on the skateboards, that he could push himself around with his, he doesn't have feet, but his little feet nubs where his feet would be. However, this proved unsuccessful. Although I would have loved to see, I would have loved to see him at some point, maybe once, actually, I'm not sure if maybe further along down the line, once he had shoes on, if he ever had any skate shoes and actually tried any skate tricks. I assume it would be much easier. Obviously, the grip on the bottom of the skate shoes. Obviously, the durability. You want the suede on there to prevent from the friction of the grip tape. Obviously, would run through quite quickly. Anyways, back on topic here. So Fleming then. So after the failed skateboard-like prosthesis, Fleming then fitted Andy with specialty adapted baby-sized shoes, and he successfully taught the bird to walk with them. Subsequently, Andy caught the attention of the media and Nike, which offered him a lifetime deal to supply shoes for Andy. The bird wore out a pair of shoes in about 1 month. Wow. Whew. Andy. Really just cranking through shoes like it was nothing. I mean, he was an athlete. He was, he was going around. He's obviously going around on tour. And understandably, when you're just cranking, you're putting in your miles, you're putting in your steps day after day after day after day, you're going to grind down those shoes. And it's a good thing Nike stepped in. I believe, actually, he was one of, I think he was Nike's first lifetime deal. I think this obviously preceded LeBron James's deal, and deservedly so. It's kind of strange that you don't see him in the annals of history, in the annals of shoe history and sneakerhead culture like you do with Jordan, or actually, yeah, so take that back. It's probably Jordan who had the lifetime deal first. But surprising that you don't see Andy's. Well, you have and ones, but those aren't Andy's. And it's a shame. That was a huge marketing opportunity. Why didn't you think of that and one? I mean, kind of handed it to you on a plate, but missed opportunity there, but it's in the past. What can you do about it now? Subsequently, Andy caught the attention of the media and Nike, which offered a lifetime deal to supply shoes for Andy. Bird wore out a pair of shoes in about a month. At one point, Andy and Gene appeared on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. I mean, you've made it big when you're on Johnny Carson. Back in 91, you kidding me? Like, that's a big deal. And Andy was strutting his stuff up there. Laced him up, popped up on stage, was probably doing some, strutting his stuff a little bit, feeling himself. I mean, it's kind of surprising. This might have been the beginning of the end. I mean, this is pure speculation, but there have been some rumors, some theories going around that after that Johnny Carson incident, he started running with the wrong crowd and got involved in some underground goose business, if you will. I believe it was the Canadian Goose Mafia that approached him after the Johnny Carson appearance, and that's when things started to go a little bit downhill. But this is, again, it's pure speculation. These are theories. Obviously, his image up until this point was nothing but spotless. He was just a small town boy, born without feet, and he made the best of it. Him along with Gene Fleming, they really made the best. They made lemonade out of lemons. When life gives you lemons, that's what they say. Am I right? But yeah. So that's kind of the dark underside. That's a dark theory. I don't personally adhere to that. I think Andy was just a unfortunate circumstance and a victim of a heinous crime. But there, when you have such a public figure like Andy the Goose, you're going to always have those conspiracy theories going along with the case. And unfortunately, when talking about Andy the Goose, I can't bring this up to you viewers out there without being honest, without being transparent of the dark side of this particular story. But do I adhere to that? Do I adhere to those beliefs personally? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I completely discard them, and I think you should too personally. But as a purely speaking, trying to be impartial to the situation, trying to report the facts. This is what I'm doing for you here. You gotta be impartial. You gotta, even though he's an idol of mine, you gotta be impartial to the story, and you need to report the facts. So that's what I'm doing here. Anyways, Andy became a role model, especially for disabled children, and with his shoes, Andy was able to walk, swim, and fly. His owners had hoped Andy's mobility would give hope to people with disabilities, and of course they did. His fame knew no bounds. His fame knew no bounds. It passed far and wide. Andy the Goose was a household name, not of course in Hastings, Nebraska, of course in Harvard, Nebraska, but I think people underestimate how quickly his fame spread. And this is, for all you youngins out there, this is a time before social media. He was in newspapers. He was in, he was on the Sunday paper. He was on ad slots. He was on the radio. You hear him honking. Oh my. On October 19th, sorry, got to compose myself here. And like I said, and yeah, truly his reach, his impact knew no bounds, and the name Andy the Goose spread like wildfire. Sorry, give me a moment. This part's always tough to read. This brings back sorry, my apologies. This just this particular section, it brings up a lot of raw emotion, as you can tell here. But I'll do my best to go on. On October 19th, 1991, Andy disappeared, and a day later, he was found dead in a local park with his head and his wings removed. The local community collected $10,000 equivalent to $19,895 in 2021 dollars, so adjusted for inflation. And as a reward to apprehend the killer, sorry, that came off terribly. I read that sentence poorly. The local community collected $10,000, equivalent to $19,895, as a reward to apprehend the killer. However, the perpetrator could not be identified. According to a former Chamber of Commerce president, Don Reynolds, police were, in fact, able to identify the killer, but did not reveal their identity to the public. And that identity still has not been released to the public to this day. A true tragedy indeed. The tragedy of Andy the Goose. Absolutely heart-wrenching story. Pretty, in all seriousness though, my God, who goes and murders a goose in cold blood? What kind of psychopath goes and hunts down a disabled goose, a footless goose who is wearing sneakers, and says, I'm going to go murder that goose? Absolute psychopath. Ugh. What a shame. What a shame. Would like to see, what endless potential. Would have liked to see what sort of heights Andy could have reached, because frankly he was taken too soon. He died died on October 19th, didn't die. He was murdered in cold blood, October 19th, 1991. Only aged somewhere between 3 and 4. They don't have his birth certificate. They lost it. The Goose medical system back in 91 or back in 87 wasn't quite what it is now. I think that a lot of young geese raised in the modern era, the Gen Z geese out there, they don't understand the fact that the Goose medical system was just an absolute shell of what it is now. And be grateful. If you're a Gen Z Goose out there, you got to be grateful for what you got. Anyways, I don't want to harp on this. I'm sure you guys are processing this emotional onslaught. I mean, this isn't my first time going through it, and obviously you saw me getting a little emotional earlier. And for those of you out there who this is your first rodeo, this is your first time encountering this tragic story, my condolences, because it's hard to process. It's a difficult one for sure. But remember, time heals all wounds, and Andy the Goose would not want you to harp on this tragedy. He'd want you to go ahead and live your life to the fullest. So on that note, thanks for tuning on in, and we'll catch you next time. Adios, amigos.